There have been some massive fights in UFC history, some that finally got the title a super fight. Conor Khabib, Izzy Pereira 2, GSP Bisping. There have been a lot of super fights that should have happened but really didn't. Stuff like Izzy vs Usman, GSP vs Anderson, maybe even John Jones vs Anderson. These were some of the biggest fights the UFC could have made, but they were never able to. But the biggest fight right now in the UFC, you saw the thumbnail, so you know exactly what it is. It is Conor vs Colby Covington. Just as a blanket statement, I'm sure you're already hyped. Just think about the press conferences to build up everything that can ensue. But let's talk about the timing for Conor. Conor obviously is booked against Chandler. I think the fight's gonna happen regardless of what he may be saying or what Chandler is saying. He might be facing off with Peter Yan right now, but I think we know it's gonna be Conor with Chandler. And we don't know when that's gonna be. It could be 300, it could be 301, it could be 302. But at the end of the day, Conor is one of the biggest superstars in UFC history, and I think everyone is excited for that. Colby, at the time of recording, is about to go fight Leon, and I think we all know that that fight is up in the air. But here's the thing about Conor vs Colby. Obviously, if it's for the welterweight championship, that would be huge. But when you have two superstars of this caliber, I don't know how much that really matters. Conor vs Colby would be hype now, it would be hype in a year, and it would be hype in 3 years. It doesn't matter just because of the timing of it. The fact that Conor and Colby don't fight often anymore. The fact that Conor and Colby are superstars. The fact that the two of them will go crazy at each other. And their recent performances have been okay in a different sense for both of them. Colby is coming off a relatively boring fight against Masvidal, but is that really his fault? Masvidal was basically trying to not get submitted. That was also a huge build-up for Colby. All of the background knowledge of him and Masvidal, them being friends, them becoming enemies, and then they of course fought. The fights between him and Usman are some of the most legendary fights in the UFC. That first one was iconic. I was in arena for the second one. Hot take, I think Colby won. I know everyone's going to disagree, but in arena, I can guarantee you everyone thought Colby won. Conor is in a weird situation. He obviously snapped his leg, and in that fight, he was looking good until he wasn't, but we don't know how much the leg really played into it. Coming off a second fight where he looked good, but then it did seem like the ring rust and the evolution of MMA really hurt him there, because he was fighting well, and he just didn't pick up on the low calf kick until it was too late. Then, of course, Conor Cowboy, which was almost like too short to even take into account. I know there's some caveats for Conor. He could have fallen off. You honestly could just say that he's not that great. But here's the thing, it's unknown. And that unknown for Conor is what's going to make this fight so interesting. But like I said with the parameters, we already know who the two of them are going to fight next. So seeing how he fights against Chandler is going to be huge. Chandler is pretty chinny at times when he wants to be, and then other times he got an iron chin. His fight IQ varies by the hour. Sometimes he fights really smart, other times he fights really dumb, and then sometimes he tries to fight smart and gets himself submitted. That fight is going to answer a lot of questions, but I don't even know how much it matters if he wins or not. Conor kind of has a built-in excuse already in terms of ring rust. He literally snapped his leg. And Colby versus Leon, I don't know how that fight's going to go either, because Leon is looking better and better, and he's coming off fighting a monster in Kamaru Usman, and now fighting Colby, who is a more volume-based wrestler, very pace-heavy. It's a different fight, and I think you could say that Colby's striking is better than Usman's, except I don't know if that really matters with such a slick striker like Leon. So do I think Colby's going to win? I think that is the definition of a 50-50 fight. Colby's striking is good enough to be competitive on the feet with Leon, and Leon's takedown defense is good enough to be competitive in the clinch and a lot of the wrestling exchanges in terms of getting up. He's been training for a wrestler for basically a year and a half, whereas Colby was only really training for a striker in Masvidal, but he knew that Masvidal couldn't do anything to him on the ground, in the clinch, or anything like that. That definitely plays into it. Let's just talk about the build-up. Colby is going to be screaming the most vile and decrepit things. It's gonna honestly be like that Jake Paul video of him coming at Conor, but for like 3 weeks straight. And I think everyone knows that Conor on the mic isn't as great as he used to be, but I think he would find a return to form with a worthy dance partner. He was basically yelling at a brick wall with Dustin. Dustin was just trying to do his thing. Dustin out of nowhere is like, why is Conor coming crazy at my wife? And I think that's because he just didn't have the dance partner to really hype him up for it. And in terms of all the content that's gonna be made out of this, you could create so many narratives, so many cool pictures and trailers. I think we all know that Conor and Colby are going to create an absolute fireworks of a build-up, and that countdown and all of the promotional material, it's just such a huge opportunity for them, and I think that's what they want to do. I think that's why they're trying to delay it enough so the timing works out that after both of these fights, you could do Conor versus Colby. I think that's what they're planning. And just comparing it to some of the other super fights, would this sell more than Conor versus Khabib? In a certain circumstance. If it's Conor versus Colby for the belt, all coming off 2 wins, Yes. Would it be bigger than Conor vs. Khabib 2 without a belt? No, and obviously Conor vs. Khabib 2 if that was somehow for a belt. Obviously not bigger than that. Some of the other competitors, Conor vs. Charles. Obviously, I'm not from Brazil, but it might be hard to measure that, but I'm sure the Brazilian fan base, that is more of a question than you think. Conor vs. Charles is also a massive fight. Conor vs. Islam is also a huge fight because you have a lot of narratives there, but I just think the promotional material for a Conor vs. Colby would be way more interesting and have a lot more attention than that of him versus Islam, even if it was for the belt. That is something you can easily dispute. In terms of some non-Conor fights, there's Jones vs. Aspinall, which I think would be big, and Jones vs. Stipe is obviously going to be big because of all the terms and headlines like greatest heavyweight versus greatest of all time. That would still be a big fight, but I don't know if that's bigger than a McGregor card. As we all know, no one does it like McGregor. So like I was saying, the actual event time, it's been said that Conor is going to fight around April, and we obviously know Colby is fighting this upcoming weekend. A fight like this could be the November MSG card of next year, just because of how long they make the two of them wait, how much time they both take off in between each fight. And I think very quickly, if Colby wins, and if Conor wins at 170, I think everyone's going to just start talking about this fight. I think everyone's going to know that is the fight to make. I don't think the issue of Conor not having more wins at welterweight, Conor actually beating a welterweight, is going to come into play. This is such a big cash cow that you can tell everyone would want it. But what is the one thing that would get in the way of this? Yes, you're right. Belal Muhammad. I think the only way you can do this without giving Belal Muhammad a title shot, especially because he's weighing in as a back end, would be if you gave Belal an interim fight against a Shavkat or Wonder Boy, something like that. With that being said though, there is a chance this fight happens without a belt. Honestly, that might be the more likely scenario, this fight happening without a belt, but who knows? There's so many different possibilities. So let me know down below. Are you excited for this? Do you want to see this fight? I'm sure you do. If you did enjoy this video, leave a like, subscribe, and check out this video on Ian Garry.